Okay, and it seems good. So you can feel free to type in the chat or just talk. It doesn't really matter. This isn't too formal. But pretty much this Google Doc's going to cover everything. I'm just going to go through the rules real quick and should be pretty quick. So starting out, just the basic team leader stuff. This has already been taken care of. You don't really have to worry about this. Basically, all the team leaders had to be level 30 and had competed in a previous tournament. We just lost Toxic Player, but I don't know. I'm going to just keep going and I'll ping him real quick. Okay, moving on. Um, anyway, the scheduling is going to happen. Pretty much the way scheduling is going to work is we're going to get a time for a game. So, like, you know, there are going to be 10 games throughout the season. So we'll get a time, like maybe once a week or something like that. And with the occasional break week. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to find one person to play that game. Doesn't matter who it is, just someone on the team. Can't be me, though, because team leaders can only play in the team leader game. Give me one sec to move Captain to John in.
Hey,
And now let me move Toxic Player back in.
hello.
Toxic Player is back. So you guys didn't miss very much. I was just saying the way scheduling is going to work, it's pretty much, we'll get a game time scheduled probably around once a week. And then we got to pick one person from the team that isn't a team leader to play that game.
Right.
Next up, the post-game survey. This is pretty much a lot like the last tournament if you were in it, but if you weren't in it, pretty much after every game, you'll have to take a screenshot of the end game screen, and you'll have to fill out a few questions about the game, like just like what's your username, who won, upload the screenshot. And this is just done so that we can collect some data. The other part of it is called the sportsmanship score and the performance score. So you're going to be asked to rate every player on a 1 to 5 scale who was in the game in terms of both their sportsmanship and their performance. Um, hang on a sec.
And I assume you can't vote for yourself, obviously, because
Yeah, you won't vote on yourself. The
right,
only
just making sure.
stipulation with that is you can't give more than 2 players the same rating. And the reason is we don't want people just being like, "Oh, everyone was a 5 that game," and not really thinking about it, or everyone was a 3, just give everyone average scores. There's none of that. You got to think about it at least a little bit.
So yeah,
If you think,
it's kind of like a player ranking, like this player's first, second, third.
yeah, you can think about it however you want. Totally. But
Yeah.
we're just doing that to get an idea, and then the higher your sportsmanship rating, maybe we'll do something with that. But anyway, moving on. Next part of it is the team leader game. The team leader game is just it's going to happen at the end of the season. It's going to be the 10th game, and the only significant thing about it is only team leaders are going to play. And in the event that there's a tie between two teams, like they both have the same amount of points, that's how it's going to be settled.
Right.
Obviously, that could be an issue. Like, say the two teams that are tied were both agents and agents won or agents lost. Obviously, it wouldn't work. But as the mod team is putting it, we will cross that bridge when we get to it. Um,
I mean, I guess we could see like, because if you talk about like the player rankings, where it's like the rating each other and stuff, it is like,
yeah, I don't think we want to use that necessarily because it comes from the players. And if it was,
yeah,
going to
true.
be that, people would be incentivized to just give a bunch of ones and twos. Um,
That's true.
but anyway, regardless, we'll figure that out if that happens. So the next thing is cuts. This is unlikely to happen, I think, but it has been put that at the end of a season or at the end of a month or something, some time period, if a player has been a problem, then a team can vote to cut them from the team. It has to be a unanimous vote. I don't really think our team is going to have an issue with it because you guys are all really good players. But that is a thing.
My
Um,
team should be good too, I think.
I hope everyone's team is fine with that. The only other thing is the last week of the tournament is going to be like VOD review, post tournament discussion. Basically, just at the end of the tournament, we're going to have a week to kind of go back and review things, which will be fun. Now
Nice.
let's go over the actual rules for the games. This is the really important part. Like the rest of that was just sort of information about the tournament. This is the part that you should really pay attention to because this stuff is actually going to matter a lot. The first rule: you got to show up 15 minutes early to your scheduled game. Um, Part of it is also that we're going to be able to stream the games. I believe, like we're going to be able to have our player on our team stream the game, and we can all watch. So if you're available, I would hope that our team can show up and kind of watch the games if you're down for that because I think it'd be nice for the person who's playing to know that, hey, the team's watching. It's kind of cool. And so, yeah, just try to show up 15 minutes early. The other nice thing about that is if we have a lot of people showing up to each game, my theory is that we could choose like who's going to play that game on the spot. So, if you were signed up to play the game, but you really aren't feeling well that day, maybe you just had a really shitty morning. My hope is other people will be there so that you can, step out if you need to. Um, Hang on, I got a question. Can you please repeat the thing you requested one of us to do? Which team leaders can? I'm not sure I know what you're talking about, Jeffrey. Um, the first point I mentioned. Let me go back up. You mean just the team leader requirements? Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. I don't think there was anything important. I think you're good. Um, but anyway, I'll just move on with the rules. So the next rule, players must stay anonymous at all times. You're not allowed to say your name or say someone else's name, and we all got to use the NTF agent skin. This time, slightly different from the last tournament. You don't have to have the male gender set. You have to have the random gender set. Um, you know, the only reason we did that was people might have a pattern of it if they cheated, but we don't think it's a significant problem enough to want to do that. The other thing is you're not allowed to say the same thing over and over again in a game, or like, for example, a certain player who I will remain unnamed in the previous tournament said derp at the start of every game, and that allowed every other player in the lobby to identify them right at the start. So you're not allowed to do that because obviously, if people can identify you, it's going to give them information that is unfair to the game. Obviously, patterns of speech happen accidentally. I say, similar things every game, but you can't explicitly be trying to say a phrase to reveal your identity, if that makes sense. Moving on, players may not duel or reference alpha beta concepts, such as stating that they always alpha nodes. This one's fairly simple. We banned that just because, if a duel were to happen in tournament play, it would be kind of a broken strategy if it actually was true. Um, so we just decided to completely avoid that, like last tournament, same deal. Moving on, players may not intentionally disconnect from the game. If there's an unintentional disconnect, you gotta wait out the timer and pass until the player reconnects. This is again the same as the last tournament if you were there. If you weren't there, pretty much if someone DCs, play is paused, try not to talk about the game and just wait out the timer and pass your turn. Unfortunately, if the prop gets back around to the bot while they're disconnected and they can't reconnect, probably gonna have to redo the game because that's a pretty significant impact in tournament play, as I'm sure most of you are aware, because people pass around for a very long time. Um, so next, you cannot let the timer run out while proposing or performing node maintenance. This is to avoid autos. Autos, they can be read, and that's not something we really want in the game. It's meant to be your play. Now we get into the red rules. Just to go over the player penalties real quick, because this will be important with the red rules. With the rules that I've just listed, they were all normal rules. So, if you violate one, you'll get a warning. If you violate one twice, you'll get a point deduction. Same thing for the third one. If you violate rules 4 times in a row, you might get cut from the team. The red rules, though, are really important. If you violate a red rule, it's handled on a case by case basis. Moderators will have to talk about it. And the worst possible result of violating red rule is complete disqualification from the tournament scene. This stuff's very serious. Don't do it. You could really get disqualified and banned. So, first off, no outside communication. If you're going to stream in any server, it must be pre approved by a moderator. I believe we've been permitted to have our own team VC and have our players stream. So, if you're going to stream a game, that's where it's going to be. Don't go to another server and stream to your friends. That's not allowed unless you have explicit permission. That's a red rule. Next red rule: no game throwing. This one, obviously it's a bit of a case by case basis because what is game throwing is a very difficult question to answer. Some examples though is like consistently refusing hammer as agent or being silent for the entire game. Obviously, refusing hammer early on couldn't really be considered a game throw because some people do that as a strategy. And being silent for a period of time couldn't really be considered a game throw because that's also a strategy. But, if you're doing it consistently the entire game, yes, to answer your question, Jeffrey, being quiet is absolutely allowed. The the key difference to make is being quiet versus being silent and not really trying at all. If you're just being silent and you're not making any effort to read players, that's not allowed. But if you're being quiet for an actual reason, then yeah, that's totally fine. Next rule, got to complete the post game surveys. I talked about that a little earlier. That's a pretty simple one. I don't think that's gonna be a problem. All you gotta do really is take a screenshot and do the player ratings. No cheating or hacking of any kind. I don't really know how to comment on that one because I don't know any of those that are available for Mindnight, but, obviously don't do it. Next, every player must participate in at least 1 match per month, so let's go over that. As I said, we'll get a game time, and then we gotta pick a player from the team to play it. The only rule is that every player needs to play at least 1 game in the 10-game season. So if we, for instance, wanted to just put each player in 1 game and then have 1 player do the rest of the 5 games, we could. We're probably not gonna do that because 'cause that'd be kinda weird, but that's the stipulation is you gotta play at least 1 game per month. And then lastly, no out of game toxicity and extreme toxicity within the game will not be tolerated. So obviously we want us to be, a very nice community and be good to each other. But we also understand that being toxic in game can be a very important strategy for some players, and that's, sometimes how people get wins. And we don't want to limit players who need to do that. So if you're going to be a little toxic in game, that's okay, but make sure it stays in the game. It doesn't get too intense, and at the end of the game, we all have to be able to kind of shake hands and say, "Hey, good game, well played." Um, you know, that kind of a thing. Lastly, just the seasons. It's a 3-month season, 10 games. Um, any player can drop out or be cut between the seasons. And if you need to drop out before the end of a month, before the end of a season, just make sure you notify us so that we can make arrangements for that. Um, and lastly, scoring. Teams will receive 1 point for each game that one of their players wins. And at the end of the season, the points will be tallied, and the team with the most points will be the winner. Very simple. And yeah, the tie thing. Yep, ties are a thing. Okay, that's that's pretty much the rules. If you guys have any questions, I would say hit me up now. I know I talked kind of fast, um, but that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So, you know, you guys got any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, when you mentioned, the person streaming thing, and the earlier rules, I was just wondering, might not have caught all of that,
Sure, I'll hit you. So basically, what Nassim and the moderators have decided is that should it be of interest, your team can have a voice chat set up in this server for your player to stream the game. So, for instance, let's
Hmm.
say, you know, well, I don't know your team members, so it's hard for me to give an example. So let's say it's Nassim and I, right? Let's say Nassim has Albin in the game and I have Arsenal in the game. I can be in a VC with Arsenal and watch the game with him. She can be with Albin in another VC and watch the game there. The key is, obviously we don't want to see other perspectives because it just gets cheaty. So yeah,
Right. Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. So yeah, we'll each have our own kind of streaming room almost, and then
yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah, so all right, that works.
Cool. Anything else?
I think I should be good. I wrote down the stuff, to give to my team.
Yeah, cool. Well, if you guys on my team are good and you understood that, then we're all good, and we'll start setting up games.
All
Thanks
right.
for showing up.